Chapter 663. Rapid expansion of the Eternal Realm. Boon. Lin Fei ensnared the body of the chaotic behemoth within his Eternal Realm. Simultaneously, the power of the Eternal Realm relentlessly crushed down on the behemoth, intent on utterly obliterating it. Roar. However, the chaotic behemoth struggled continuously, attempting to break free from Lin Fei's Eternal Realm. This chaotic behemoth was indeed a top-tier one. Lin Fei had slain several chaotic behemoths before, but those once caught within the Eternal Realm were typically suppressed without resistance. Any struggle? It was futile, merely the throes of the dying. Lin Fei didn't need to concern himself with them. But this chaotic behemoth was different. Phut. Its claw viciously tore through the void of Lin Fei's Eternal Realm, instantly ripping a tear in it. Lin Fei's heart shook slightly. He knew this chaotic behemoth was strong, a top-tier chaotic behemoth, comparable to a top-tier supreme. But to be this powerful was beyond anything Lin Fei had seen before. Remember, this was the Eternal Realm, a realm that had slain chaotic behemoths. Yet, it couldn't withstand a single claw from the behemoth before him. But then, Lin Fei's expression turned icy. He took a deep breath. Once you've entered my Eternal Realm, it's not so easy to leave. Eternal Realm, explode. Lin Fei mobilized all the power of the Eternal Realm. At that moment, explosions began within the realm, a collapse of the void itself. The void in every direction completely collapsed, making escape impossible. This was a maneuver of the Eternal Realm. Such an explosion, no supreme could withstand. Even a chaotic behemoth would be pulverized. Now, this chaotic behemoth was no exception. As Lin Fei's Eternal Realm exploded in this manner, caught off guard, the vast body of the chaotic behemoth was obliterated by about 1/10. But this was not the end. It was merely the beginning. Afterward, time and again, the Eternal Realm continuously exploded. The chaotic behemoth was enraged. It roared furiously, wreaking havoc within the Eternal Realm, attempting to escape. Yet, every time it managed to breach the Eternal Realm, another explosion would follow, obliterating a part of its body. Ultimately, the chaotic behemoth had no choice but to cease its attempts. It could not safely escape from the Eternal Realm. Of course, completely obliterating a chaotic behemoth was difficult. Lin Fei was essentially in a war of attrition with the behemoth. He kept the explosions coming. However, this had a significant impact on the Eternal Realm itself, even risking its collapse. The cost was enormous, but Lin Fei was determined to slay the chaotic behemoth and extract its essence. Even if the opponent was a top-tier chaotic behemoth, Lin Fei was resolved to try, whatever the cost. Time passed slowly. Lin Fei's Eternal Realm became increasingly unstable, and the chaotic behemoth was also suffering greatly. Nearly half of its body had been obliterated. Now, it was a battle of desperation, each side continuously depleting the other. After a long struggle, the chaotic behemoth was the first to speak. If we continue this way, we will both die. You will die, I won't. Lin Fei retorted. You lunatic. The chaotic behemoth was frantic. It was a top-tier chaotic behemoth, a sovereign in the chaos, who could usually rest easy. Even in its slumber, no one dared to confront it. But who could have anticipated encountering someone as mad as Lin Fei? It was sheer insanity. It seemed like a fight to the death. Yet, the chaotic behemoth couldn't recall any deep grudge or significant enmity that would warrant such a relentless battle. Was such a desperate struggle necessary? The woman within the Eternal Realm also witnessed this scene. She now felt somewhat reckless. Perhaps she shouldn't have brought Lin Fei here so directly to engage in a deadly battle with a top-tier chaotic behemoth. If Lin Fei couldn't hold on, she too would die. But now, she could no longer stop the proceedings. As time went on, Lin Fei continued as before. His Eternal Realm gradually stabilized, simply because the chaotic behemoth could no longer withstand it. The destructive power of the chaotic behemoth gradually weakened, and its body was nearly completely obliterated. 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%. The body of the chaotic behemoth rapidly disintegrated, from being half destroyed to more than 90% obliterated. And it continued to vanish. What destructive power could such a diminished chaotic behemoth still possess? For a moment, few gripped the chaotic behemoth. Do not kill me, it pleaded. I can submit to you. I can serve you forever. I am a top-tier chaotic behemoth, I will be of great help to you. Just please spare my life. The chaotic behemoth was afraid. It was at a disadvantage and ultimately could not outlast Lin Fei. As it begged Lin Fei for mercy, Lin Fei simply shook his head and said, a top-tier chaotic behemoth is indeed rare. Unfortunately, I do not need a living chaotic behemoth. What I need is the essence of flesh. So, it is best for you to die. Boon. As Lin Fei's words fell, all the power of the eternal realm surged toward the remaining tenth of the chaotic behemoth's body. No. The chaotic behemoth screamed in agony, its voice filled with unwillingness. But its reluctance changed nothing. It was defeated, utterly and completely. Defeat meant paying a price, and for the chaotic behemoth, that price was its life. Phut. The last vestige of the chaotic behemoth's body was obliterated. A vast amount of flesh essence filled Lin Fei's eternal realm, causing it to rapidly advance. Previously, Lin Fei's eternal realm had progressed to 3%. Now, Lin Fei could clearly feel a significant increase in progress. 4%, 5%, 6%, 7%, 8%. The body of this chaotic behemoth far exceeded Lin Fei's expectations. The effect was extraordinarily beneficial, much better than the results from several chaotic behemoths Lin Fei had consumed. System. Lin Fei thought, immediately accessing the system panel to check. Host, Lin Fei. Martial Realm, Martial Ancestor. World Level, True Immortal Level World, Progress 9%. Illusory Realm, Supreme Level. Lin Fei observed his world progress from 3% to now 9%. The difference was merely from slaying a single top-tier chaotic behemoth. The essence of one top-tier chaotic behemoth had skyrocketed his progress by 6%. It was incredible. Indeed, the more powerful the chaotic behemoth, the greater the benefit to Lin Fei's eternal realm. Only 1% away from 10% progress, he thought. One more chaotic behemoth should suffice to reach that milestone. Once I reach 10% progress, there will be a minor leap in the strength of the eternal realm. Lin Fei made up his mind to find another chaotic behemoth before returning to the divine realm. After all, achieving a 10% increase was a notable accomplishment. He couldn't return to the divine realm without gaining anything significant. However, the immediate priority was to fulfill his promise. Although he had slain the chaotic behemoth, he had yet to address the matter of the three supremes the woman wanted dead. Swipe. Lin Fei transported the woman out. The woman, already aware that Lin Fei had slain the top-tier chaotic behemoth, looked somewhat conflicted. All right, I've obtained what I needed from the chaotic behemoth and achieved my goal, Lin Fei declared. Now, it's time for me to keep my promise. Lead the way to where those three supremes are located. I will resolve this matter as well. Lin Fei's words jolted the woman. Without hesitation, she led Lin Fei, flying towards the depths of chaos. Chapter 664. A top-tier supreme comes knocking. Deep in the chaos, a realm slowly emerged before Lin Fei. This is the place, the woman said. My former realm, the astral realm, but now it's occupied by those three supremes. I have only one request, kill them. Her voice was tight with anger, clearly holding a deep grudge against the three supremes, wishing for Lin Fei to dispatch them immediately. Astral realm. Lin Fei observed the realm in front of him. It was small, even smaller than the divine realm, but it was a chaos realm nonetheless. Lead those three out, he suggested calmly. Otherwise, if a battle breaks out in the astral realm, it might destroy the domain. You wouldn't want that, would you? The woman nodded slightly. She definitely did not want to destroy the astral realm, as it was her homeland. All right, I'll go in and draw them out. With that, her figure flashed, and she swiftly flew into the astral realm. Lin Fei waited quietly in the chaos. They are coming out. Before long, Lin Fei sensed the woman and three figures following her. Swoosh! The woman flew to Lin Fei's side. The three figures that were in hot pursuit stopped abruptly upon seeing Lin Fei, revealing themselves as the three supremes. Did you actually bring help? One of them remarked, surprised. No wonder you dared to come back to the astral realm alone. But do you really think your helper can stand against us? How naive. Even if he's also a Supreme, we are not ordinary Supremes. Moreover, with the three of us united, aside from a top-tier Supreme, who could possibly handle us? Their tone mixed skepticism with dismissive arrogance. The three Supremes eyed Lin Fei and the woman with a chilling gaze. The woman had always been a thorn in their side, and they had long sought to permanently eliminate this threat. However, it wasn't easy. The woman was a Supreme herself, and even with the combined strength of three Supremes, killing another Supreme in the chaos was exceedingly difficult. Likewise, they viewed the woman's assistant as negligible. Unless he was a top-tier Supreme, he couldn't trouble them. And as for a top-tier Supreme, what sort of existence was that? They couldn't believe the woman could possibly enlist the help of such a figure. If she had that kind of connection, she would have used it to kill them long before now. Is it these three? Lin Fei suddenly asked the woman. Yes, these are the three, she replied through gritted teeth. Just help me kill them, and the task will be completed. All right, Lin Fei responded succinctly. Now that the targets were confirmed, he wasted no time. Boon. Lin Fei didn't even bother to employ his illusory realm. He transformed into a world himself. His vast eternal realm released the light of eternity, sweeping toward the three Supremes. Swoosh! Under the glow of eternity, the three Supremes had no time to react before they were engulfed into the eternal realm. This is the realm. What's going on? How did we end up in this strange world in the blink of an eye? And it seems we're even being suppressed. What kind of world can suppress us? This is embodying a realm. Moreover, to suppress us and even make us feel the presence of death, only a top-tier Supreme could achieve this. That woman actually managed to enlist a top-tier Supreme. Suddenly, the three Supremes turned pale, their voices trembling. Top-tier Supreme. Lin Fei was indeed a top-tier Supreme. The woman had actually managed to bring a top-tier Supreme against them. But how could this be? Annihilate. Lin Fei didn't bother with further discussion. He activated his eternal realm, beginning the process of annihilating the three Supremes. Boon, boon, boon. Shortly after, the three Supremes were obliterated within the eternal realm, completely reduced to dust. However, the three Supremes did not perish. They employed a peculiar method to continue existing, albeit in a hidden manner. This was surely a life-preserving tactic unique to each Supreme. Some Supremes possess especially potent and covert means of survival, difficult to anticipate and defend against. In the case of another Supreme, perhaps a moment of oversight could have allowed these three to escape. Yet, they were within Lin Fei's eternal realm, where no concealment or survival tactic could go undetected. Continue the annihilation. Lin Fei thought, and the relentless power of eternity resumed its work, obliterating the hidden life-preserving methods of the three Supremes. No. A faint scream echoed within the void of the eternal realm before everything returned to silence. They were dead. The three Supremes had fallen, unable to muster even a hint of resistance. Naturally, the essence of their flesh also nourished Lin Fei's eternal realm. Swipe. Lin Fei opened his eyes and saw the woman. His look was expectant, and he nodded calmly. They are slain. The task is completed. The rest is for you to handle. The woman shuddered, her body trembling. They were dead. Those three Supremes, like immense boulders pressing down upon her, had finally crumbled. A weight lifted from her shoulders, she felt an immense relief. As for the remaining matters, they would be easy to handle without the three Supremes. With her capabilities, she could effortlessly manage the situation. Thank you, fellow Taoist. The woman bowed deeply to Lin Fei. This time, her gratitude was sincere and heartfelt. Lin Fei did not linger after completing his task. He headed straight back to Kunyu City. Soon, he was back in the bustling yet tranquil city that seemed unchanged, still a hub of calm and peace where many Supremes exchanged wisdom and experiences. However, Lin Fei's purpose was different. He was on the lookout for any news about chaotic behemoths, yet such information had eluded him thus far. All he could do was wait. As time passed, Lin Fei realized his time was running short. If 2 years passed, he would have to return to the divine realm, regardless of whether his eternal realm progress had reached 10% or not. Lin Fei knew he must go back. Approximately a month later, a distinctive Supreme approached Lin Fei's residence. May I ask if this is the dwelling of Supreme Lin? A new voice inquired from outside. Lin Fei opened his eyes. With a slight sweep of his senses, he immediately detected something unusual about the Supreme outside. This was no ordinary Supreme, and very likely a top-tier one. Creak. Lin Fei opened the door and saw the figure standing before him. Who might you be? Lin Fei inquired. I am Miraborn Supreme, the visitor introduced himself. I have come specifically to seek assistance from Supreme Lin on a certain matter. Of course, if Supreme Lin is willing to help, I have information regarding chaotic behemoths to offer. Lin Fei's gaze sharpened, his intense presence seemingly ineffective against Miraborn Supreme, who remained smiling, his demeanor unchanged. This confirmed Lin Fei's suspicion. Miraborn Supreme was indeed a top-tier Supreme. Otherwise, how could he remain so composed and unaffected by Lin Fei's imposing aura? A top-tier Supreme seeking him out was no trivial matter, especially when coupled with the promise of chaotic behemoth information, a piece of intelligence Lin Fei couldn't afford to ignore. Please, Miraborn Supreme, Lin Fei said, stepping aside to welcome his guest inside. Chapter 665. Time-Space Corridor. Miraborn Supreme sat across from Lin Fei, clearly having done his homework on Lin. With a smile, he spoke, Supreme Lin, I have a small request and hope you might agree to assist. If Supreme Lin is willing to help, then information about the chaotic behemoth will be freely given, to your satisfaction. What is it? Lin Fei asked directly. Miraborn Supreme hesitated for a moment before explaining, it's quite simple. Are you aware of the chaotic phenomenon known as the time-space corridor? Time-space corridor? I am not aware of it, Lin Fei responded. Miraborn Supreme elaborated, the time-space corridor is a rare chaotic phenomenon that appears sporadically within the chaos without any predictable pattern. Its location is only known when it appears. As for its function, it's quite straightforward, it accelerates time. Even we Supremes find time acceleration beyond our abilities, but the time-space corridor can achieve this. Once inside, time moves much faster. I have a disciple who is unaware that I am her master, and I have intentionally allowed her to fend for herself in the chaos. She is planning to enter the time-space corridor soon, but I am unexpectedly unable to watch over her covertly. Therefore, I'd like to ask Supreme Lin to go to the time-space corridor and protect her in secret. Once the task is accomplished, the information about the chaotic behemoth will be yours. Miraborn Supreme laid out his request clearly. He wanted Lin Fei to covertly protect his disciple. Although Lin Fei felt it was somewhat overkill for a top-tier Supreme to provide protection in secret, if Miraborn Supreme believed it was worth the trade for some information on chaotic behemoths, why not do it? Obviously, he highly valued his disciple, or he would not have personally come to solicit Lin Fei's help. Time-space corridor. All right, I accept the task. Lin Fei responded. Once your disciple safely exits the time-space corridor, we'll consider the task complete. How does that sound? Lin Fei couldn't be expected to guard Miraborn Supreme's disciple indefinitely. He would only protect her covertly inside the time-space corridor. That is acceptable, Miraborn Supreme agreed. As long as Supreme Lin ensures my disciple leaves the time-space corridor safely, the task will be considered complete. Good, Lin Fei nodded. Miraborn Supreme then provided Lin Fei with some data, including what his disciple looked like and her name. The disciple, newly risen to Supreme status, was known as Rainbow Supreme. After Miraborn Supreme departed, Lin Fei stepped out and left Kunyu City, embarking on his new task. In the vast, boundless chaos, three figures soared through the void. Among them, a newly minted Supreme named Rainbow Supreme was accompanied by two friends. Though termed friends, their relationship was relatively fresh, having met not long ago in the chaos. Even so, Rainbow Supreme maintained a cautious distance, mindful of potential dangers. Time-space corridor should be close now, one of the Supremes remarked. The necessity of the time-space corridor was debatable. Many Supremes, endowed with new infinite lifespans, rarely felt the urgency of accelerated time. Their longevity spared them from most existential crises, diminishing the appeal of such temporal shortcuts. However, for those still in their ascendant phase, feeling their powers could surge swiftly, the corridor represented a critical opportunity. It offered a chance to leverage accelerated time to enhance their strength quickly. Gazing into the distance, Rainbow Supreme spotted a long corridor cutting through the dark chaos, a stark, visible contrast against the formless void. That was the time-space corridor. Its appearance was unpredictable, manifesting anywhere within the chaos without pattern or warning. They knew of its presence because it had already been visible for a while, allowing them to converge on it. "Let's move. We should enter the time-space corridor soon," she urged. "But we need to be cautious. The corridor is a mixed bag, filled with many Supremes. Some of them might have less than noble intentions." Rainbow Supreme advised vigilance. Her companions nodded gravely in agreement. "Indeed, we must be cautious. Rumors say some Supremes who entered never re-emerged. The corridor itself doesn't kill, but other Supremes might," one added, hinting at the possible dangers from their own kind rather than the environment itself. Anything could happen in the chaos where order and predictability were often scant. As the trio approached the entrance of the time-space corridor, they suddenly noticed a mysterious figure lingering outside. Rather than entering, the Supreme scanned them briefly, a single glance that sent a surge of tension through the three friends. They instantly felt threatened. The mysterious Supreme seemed exceedingly dangerous. "Be careful, this person is terrifying," Rainbow Supreme whispered to her companions. Without further delay, they quickly flew into the time-space corridor, seeking both the opportunities and safety it promised, away from the unnerving presence of the mysterious Supreme lingering at the entrance. "She does possess some vigilance," Lin Fei mused quietly to himself. The figure lingering outside the time-space corridor was none other than Lin Fei. He had arrived early, waiting outside specifically for the arrival of Rainbow Supreme. Now that he had confirmed her presence at the corridor, he was ready to follow. In the brief moment before stepping through the portal, Lin Fei had already locked onto Rainbow Supreme's position, ensuring he would not lose track of her. With a swift motion, he crossed the threshold and entered the time-space corridor. Inside, Rainbow Supreme and her two fellow Supremes exhaled in relief, believing they had evaded the enigmatic and daunting Supreme they encountered outside. "That mysterious Supreme was truly frightening," one of them whispered, a shiver in their tone. "Indeed, a mere glance seemed to portend great peril," another agreed. "The chaos harbors myriad dangers. Could that Supreme possibly be a top-tier?" the first mused. "Why would a top-tier Supreme venture into the time-space corridor? Surely, the temporal acceleration here offers little to someone of such elevated power. After all, if a top-tier Supreme could still significantly enhance their power, wouldn't they verge on becoming a master of chaos?" pondered the second, the thought almost too daunting to entertain. Both of Rainbow Supreme's companions shook their heads slightly. The notion of becoming a Chaos Master, let alone a top-tier Supreme, felt immensely distant. Without extraordinary fortune, their lives might never reach such exalted heights. Perhaps only Rainbow Supreme, newly anointed as such, held such potential. For them, hope seemed far more tenuous. Could that mysterious Supreme have followed us? One wondered aloud. "Regardless, we are here for cultivation," Rainbow Supreme declared, dismissing further concern. "Let us find a spot where time accelerates significantly. We must seize the moment." Her purpose was clear, to exploit the accelerated time for cultivation. Now that they had reached the time-space corridor, it was time to commence their training in earnest. Thus, the trio searched the corridor and eventually discovered a vortex known as a time bubble. Within these bubbles, time sped up even more dramatically. 10-fold, 20-fold, or even up to 100-fold acceleration was possible. Together, Rainbow Supreme and her companions entered the time bubble, commencing their accelerated cultivation. Chapter 666. Ambush and Rescue. Lin Fei sauntered through the time-space corridor. "Time bubbles," he mused as he locked onto Rainbow Supreme's location. Observing her enter a time bubble to cultivate, Lin Fei maintained his distance. Discovering a time bubble was indeed a stroke of good fortune. At that moment, Lin Fei was also attuned to the essence of the time-space corridor. He could distinctly sense the acceleration of time within. It sped up significantly compared to the chaos outside, at least by several folds, if not tenfold. In such a case, within Lin Fei's eternal realm, time would accelerate by 100-fold. His realm inherently operated at 10 times the temporal flow of the chaos, thus amplifying the effects of the corridor's acceleration. The experience within the eternal realm was markedly different. Even though it was already at the level of a true immortal grade world, the passage of time saw the continuous growth of the divine demons residing within it, enhancing the realm's progression. However, reaching the status of a chaos realm was challenging. Solely relying on the evolution of life within the eternal realm was insufficient. It required external forces such as absorbing the essence of worlds and chaotic behemoths to achieve substantial enhancement or transformation into a chaos realm. Lin Fei did not actively seek out time bubbles. The tenfold acceleration offered by the corridor itself was commendable enough. Besides, his primary mission was the covert protection of Rainbow Supreme, not personal cultivation. He was merely seizing the opportunity to cultivate alongside his protective duties. Time passed gradually. Rainbow Supreme and her companions had been cultivating for an extended period, each immersed in deep meditative practices at a crucial juncture in their training. With a whoosh, at that very moment, not far from where Rainbow Supreme and her companions were cultivating within the time bubble, 5 mysterious Supremes appeared. Exchanging glances, a flicker of cold intent shone in their eyes. "There are 3 Supremes cultivating in the time bubble," one noted quietly. "These 3 seem weak, probably just ordinary Supremes," another observed. "It seems our luck has come again. Assaulting Supremes in the time-space corridor is the safest of crimes. No one will ever know. Let's make our move." The consensus among the 5 was quickly reached. They were accustomed to waylaying Supremes within the time-space corridor. They proceeded with extreme caution, ensuring no other Supremes were around before launching their attack. With a thunderous roar, the 5 acted decisively. Their combined strike was cataclysmic, instantly shattering the time bubble. The formidable force of their combined powers struck directly at Rainbow Supreme and her 2 companions. "What's happening? Damn it, it's an ambush. Quick, defend." Rainbow Supreme and the others were jolted awake by the attack. Facing the united front of 5 Supremes, waking up was the only response, albeit too late. The ferocious power of the 5 assailants pummeled the 3 Supremes. In an instant, the overwhelming force began to crush their bodies. Rainbow Supreme alone seemed to be holding on desperately, but her form too rapidly began to disintegrate, 30%, 50%, 70%, 90%. A look of despair gradually filled Rainbow Supreme's eyes. "Am I to die here? I've just reached Supreme status, my future was boundless, and now to die here. I cannot accept this." Rainbow Supreme roared, her voice filled with defiance and a profound unwillingness to accept her fate. To perish here, unknown and unheralded, slain within the corridors of time-space, how could Rainbow Supreme reconcile herself to such a fate? She aspired to ascend as a top-tier Supreme and even, perhaps, to become a master of chaos. She believed fervently in her potential, therefore, she could not resign herself to a premature demise. However, the vast gulf in strength between her and her assailants was insurmountable. No amount of mental fortitude or willpower could alter the harsh reality of her situation. If her corporeal form were wholly obliterated, Rainbow Supreme would indeed perish. "Heh, what does it matter if you are unwilling?" sneered one of the attackers. "Of all the Supremes we have slain, which among them was willing to die? But it makes no difference. Whether you accept it or not, or however fiercely you struggle, it is all in vain. Today your death is certain, and your treasures will become ours." The 5 Supremes laughed among themselves. Since banding together and venturing into the time-space corridor, they had enjoyed a run of uninterrupted success. They had never faced any serious challenge, dispatching even powerful Supremes through their coordinated ambushes. The treasures they had accumulated from their slain foes had significantly augmented their powers. Some were even nearing the threshold of top-tier Supreme status. Yet, to achieve such an exalted rank was not an easy task. As despair and defiance warred within Rainbow Supreme, a sudden, mysterious radiance descended. Illusory realm. A figure approached step by step from afar, while the power of the illusory realm had already made its presence felt. This was Lin Fei intervening at last. He had noticed the 5 Supremes earlier but had refrained from immediate action, opting instead to assess Rainbow Supreme's capabilities and to see if she could turn the tide herself. Regrettably, Lin Fei was disappointed. Rainbow Supreme had not managed to avert the crisis and was instead on the brink of death. Seeing that she was truly in dire straits and unable to sustain herself any longer, Lin Fei finally intervened. "Who is it? Who's there?" The five Supremes were startled and instantly turned to look behind them. They saw Lin Fei approaching and even the descent of the illusory realm, but they were powerless to resist it. The power of the illusory realm targeted the spirit, and though these five Supremes were formidable in strength, their spiritual resilience was merely average, indistinguishable from that of ordinary Supremes. Consequently, Lin Fei's illusory realm enveloped them entirely, casting a veil of confusion over their eyes. Soon, all five were immobilized, their gazes vacant and lost. Lin Fei advanced step by step towards Rainbow Supreme. He spared not a glance at the five incapacitated Supremes. Their fate was already sealed the moment they were ensnared by the illusory realm. Lin Fei's eternal realm flickered subtly, sweeping the five Supremes into his eternal realm. As the five Supremes vanished, Rainbow Supreme was taken aback. "Is it you?" She recognized her rescuer, the mysterious Supreme she had encountered outside the time-space corridor, whom she had desperately tried to evade. Yet now, he had saved her. "Thank you, friend, for your rescue," Rainbow Supreme managed to say, still wary but polite. "There's no need for thanks, I am merely fulfilling a promise," Lin Fei responded. "The time-space corridor is a rare opportunity. Continue your cultivation. We can discuss everything after you finish your training. With me here, no one will disturb you." Lin Fei's tone was filled with a quiet confidence that brooked no doubt. Those five Supremes. Rainbow Supreme still harbored some concerns. The sudden disappearance of the five Supremes made her skeptical of their deaths. Lin Fei was undeniably strong, but could he really have killed five Supremes so swiftly? She suspected that Lin Fei had merely suppressed them, and it was possible they might still escape, which could spell trouble later. "You can consider those five Supremes dead," Lin Fei assured her, shaking his head. "Once inside my eternal realm, not even a top-tier Supreme can escape." His voice carried an unwavering confidence, leaving no room for doubt. Chapter 667. Show No Mercy. Rainbow Supreme ultimately resumed her cultivation. Despite her lingering doubts about Lin Fei, the evidence before her eyes was undeniable. Lin Fei had the power to end her life effortlessly, yet chose not to act against her. This reassurance was difficult to ignore given the rare opportunity provided by the time-space corridor, which Rainbow Supreme was loath to forfeit. She seized every moment to cultivate. Her two companions, though severely injured, had not perished. It is not easy for a Supreme to fall. Aware that Lin Fei had saved them, they were profoundly grateful and likewise devoted themselves to cultivation. Lin Fei, however, remained unhurried and did not enter any time bubbles. Accelerated time had little to offer him now. What he needed was the essence of chaotic behemoths or the origin of worlds. Ideally, that of a true immortal grade world or even a realm's origin. Only such could further elevate or transform his eternal realm. Time gradually passed. It might have been Rainbow Supreme's misfortune, but not far from them, another group of three Supremes arrived. Their intentions were clearly malevolent as they fixed their gaze on Rainbow Supreme and her group. Eventually, their focus shifted to Lin Fei. With a swift motion, Lin Fei opened his eyes, his glance fleeting. He then spoke in an even tone, "Leave within 3 breaths. Otherwise, I will show no mercy." His words incited some anger among the three Supremes, yet Lin Fei paid them no heed, instead calmly counting the time. 1 breath. 2 breaths. Quickly, 2 breaths passed. The three Supremes still had not made a decision. Instead, they looked around, seemingly still harboring intentions towards Rainbow Supreme and her group. Clearly, these three Supremes were confident in their own strength, confident enough to disregard Lin Fei's warning. They paid no heed, undeterred by the threat posed. 3 breaths. Lin Fei's gaze turned icy. The allotted time had expired, and since he had declared there would be no mercy, he intended to keep his word. The illusory realm descended the next moment, and with it, the eternal realm emanated from Lin Fei, mingling with the illusory realm in a powerful surge. Instantly, the three Supremes trembled, their eyes clouding with confusion. However, their disorientation lasted only a moment before clarity returned, astonishingly within less than a breath. Lin Fei expressed his surprise. These three Supremes possessed remarkably resilient wills, breaking free from the illusory realm's grasp almost immediately, a testament to their formidable mental fortitude. However, Lin Fei was prepared for this. His power was not limited to the illusory realm. He understood that the illusory realm was not entirely reliable since it targeted the spirit and a strong-willed opponent could resist it. Hence, he had also unleashed the eternal realm within the illusory realm. As strong-willed as these three supremes were, it availed them naught. Swoosh, Lin Fei's eternal realm enveloped them, and in an instant, they were swept into his eternal realm. What is this? How did this happen? We can't move. Where are we? Panic set in among the three supremes as they found themselves in a strange, empty void. They attempted to leave, but suddenly, a terrifying pressure descended from all directions, overwhelmingly suppressing them. These were three supremes, nearing top-tier status, yet now they were subdued. This is a realm. This person might possess some relics of a world. Perhaps he can even embody a world. If I'm not mistaken, he must be a top-tier supreme. We are in danger. What a top-tier supreme! The realization threw the three supremes into complete disarray. A top-tier supreme, capable of slaying ordinary supremes, stood far above them in might and fear. The most daunting aspect of a top-tier supreme was their ability to eliminate other supremes. That was where their true power lay. Yet, in such a place as the time-space corridor, how had they encountered a top-tier supreme? Mercy, please, mercy, the three supremes pleaded. Facing a top-tier supreme, they had no choice but to beg for their lives. To resist was to embrace death. I said, 3 breaths and no mercy if you don't leave. Lin Fei declared coldly. This isn't your first time engaging in such acts. You don't deserve mercy. Lin Fei showed no compassion. These individuals were not worthy of pity. The number of supremes they had likely slain was not insignificant. Annihilate. With Lin Fei's command, the process of obliteration began within the eternal realm. A terrifying force slowly enveloped the three supremes, causing their bodies to start disintegrating and collapsing. They did not want to die, nor did they accept their fate willingly. You forced our hand, they cried out in desperation. No choice now, let's detonate. With determined expressions, the three supremes chose to self-destruct. Their simultaneous explosion was a monumental force, shaking the entire eternal realm. Even Lin Fei's realm was momentarily torn asunder, the void collapsing under the immense force of their last desperate act. This illustrated the terrifying power of a supreme self-destruction. However, Lin Fei's eternal realm ultimately withstood the assault. The self-destruction of 3 supremes was not enough to destroy it. Not 3, not even 30 supremes could obliterate the eternal realm. As the eternal realm gradually stabilized, Lin Fei sensed something amiss. A smile crept over his lips. He had detected an anomaly within his realm, an external life form, not originally part of the eternal realm. Though very subtle and seemingly blended with the life within the realm, nothing could entirely escape Lin Fei's perception. Swoosh! Lin Fei's form flickered, moving through the void of the eternal realm. This was merely a projection of his being, but in essence, Lin Fei was the eternal realm, and the eternal realm was him. The so-called projection was just a habit. He didn't truly need it to deal with the 3 supremes. Indeed, the 3 supremes had not perished. Their self-destruction was merely a ruse, a desperate attempt to escape detection by merging with divine demons within the eternal realm. They had employed a special method to integrate with the life forms within the realm, hoping to elude Lin Fei's consensus. However, they were unable to evade detection and were swiftly discovered by Lin Fei. Annihilate. Lin Fei didn't bother with words this time. He simply pointed his finger. Put. At the next moment, the 3 divine demons were targeted. With Lin Fei's pointed gesture, the bodies of these entities, and thus the integrated supremes, began to rapidly disintegrate, crumbling into dust. No. The 3 supremes screamed in despair. Their voices formed ephemeral visages in the void, but to no avail. They had become one with the divine demons, and with the destruction of these bodies, their fates were sealed. In the presence of Lin Fei, mere divine demons could not contend. With the obliteration of the 3 divine demons, the 3 supremes were thoroughly eradicated. No trace or essence of them remained. Once ensnared within Lin Fei's eternal realm, the struggle was futile. Life and death were entirely at Lin Fei's discretion. Such is the power of the eternal realm. Such is the might of a top-tier supreme. Swoosh! Rainbow Supreme opened her eyes, her expression complex. In just a short span, Lin Fei had dispatched 3 more Supremes. Along with the earlier 5, that totaled 8 Supremes who had met their end at his hands. It was perhaps the first time Rainbow Supreme truly understood just how fragile a Supreme could be, that life and death were not always in their own hands. Venturing through the chaos as a Supreme was perilous. Encountering a top-tier Supreme meant a one-way path to demise, with escape a mere fantasy. "Senior, I have nearly completed my cultivation," Rainbow Supreme finally said, steeling herself to ask, "May I know, on whose behalf are you acting?" Chapter 668. 2 Chaotic Behemoths. Clearly remembering her journey to power, Rainbow Supreme knew her rise had been fueled by her own relentless dedication, coupled with fortuitous opportunities. She had never encountered a top-tier Supreme before meeting Lin Fei. Intelligent and perceptive, she understood that anyone capable of employing Lin Fei's protection must also be a top-tier Supreme. Yet, apart from Lin Fei, she had never met another of such formidable status. "Do you wish to know?" Lin Fei asked, noticing her curiosity. "Please enlighten me, Senior." Rainbow Supreme eagerly responded, her desire to uncover the truth evident. Lin Fei observed her for a moment. After her time in the time-space corridor, Rainbow Supreme's immediate cultivation prospects were largely capped. Her future as a top-tier Supreme would hinge on chance. "Kunyu City, Mirrorborn Supreme," Lin Fei finally disclosed. "Mirrorborn Supreme, Kunyu City." Rainbow Supreme murmured, trying to connect the dots with what she knew about Mirrorborn Supreme. Suddenly, a realization struck her. Wait, that technique. Rainbow Supreme recalled an important cultivation technique pivotal to her progress, one of her greatest strokes of fortune. The originator of that technique, it seemed, was none other than Mirrorborn Supreme. With sudden clarity, Rainbow Supreme understood. She had likely been under Mirrorborn Supreme's watchful eye since she first encountered that crucial technique. It was Mirrorborn Supreme who had covertly safeguarded her, ensuring her path was strewn with serendipitous escapes from peril and smooth ascension to Supreme status. This revelation explained the seemingly miraculous interventions that had consistently tipped the scales in her favor throughout her journey. "Thank you, Senior." Rainbow Supreme bowed respectfully to Lin Fei. "Let's go back to Kunyu City." "My task here is nearly complete," Lin Fei said in a measured tone. He needed to return to Kunyu City as soon as possible to gather information about chaotic behemoths from Mirrorborn Supreme. "Senior, were you?" Rainbow Supreme began, seemingly wanting to express more. Before she could continue, Lin Fei's eternal realm enveloped her and her 2 companions, drawing them all into the eternal realm. In an instant, Lin Fei transformed into a streak of light, speeding toward Kunyu City. In Kunyu City, at Mirrorborn Supreme's abode, a wry smile appeared on Mirrorborn Supreme's face when he saw Lin Fei arrive with Rainbow Supreme in tow. "Supreme Lin, I didn't expect you to bring her along," he remarked. He had intended to keep his guardianship a secret, but it seemed that was no longer possible. "Rainbow Supreme can no longer make quick progress," Lin Fei stated calmly. "To reach the status of a top-tier Supreme will take a long time, perhaps without any significant advancement." Mirrorborn Supreme remained silent for a moment, understanding the truth in Lin Fei's words. After her journey through the time-space corridor, there was no need to keep her in the dark any longer. "Very well, thank you, Supreme Lin. The information about the chaotic behemoths that you requested, I will provide it to you," Mirrorborn Supreme said, handing over the details. Lin Fei nodded and promptly took his leave, not wanting to interrupt a reunion between master and disciple. With the specific locations of the chaotic behemoths fixed in his mind, information he trusted from Mirrorborn Supreme, Lin Fei was surprised to learn there were 2 behemoths. Typically solitary creatures, it was rare for 2 chaotic behemoths to be found together, though not impossible. Transforming once again into a streak of light, Lin Fei plunged back into the depths of the chaos. After about a month of travel, he finally halted. He had located the chaotic behemoths, exactly as described in the information given to him. Indeed, there were 2, both deep in slumber, a common trait he had observed in several behemoths he had encountered. Perhaps due to their long lifespans and chaotic birthplaces, there was little else for them to do but sleep when undisturbed. With an unhesitating hum, Lin Fei summoned the illusory realm, weaving it together with the eternal realm he had mastered so proficiently. Upon the arrival of the illusory realm, the two chaotic behemoths displayed no sign of disturbance, not even opening their eyes, making it uncertain whether the illusory realm had any effect on them at all. Regardless, Lin Fei had more than the illusory realm at his disposal. As the eternal realm merged with the illusory realm, it swiftly enveloped the two chaotic behemoths. With a swish of his commanding energy, Lin Fei encapsulated both behemoths within his eternal realm. Such significant disturbance would surely rouse even the most deeply slumbering of creatures. Indeed, both chaotic behemoths awakened abruptly and opened their eyes, but by then it was too late. Lin Fei's eternal realm had already subdued them, and the immense pressure from all directions made any struggle futile. They roared and thrashed violently, trying to escape the confines of the eternal realm, but to no avail. Annihilate! Lin Fei finally spoke, his voice summoning the full might of the eternal realm. Immediately, the realm's power began to obliterate the two chaotic behemoths. Their bodies could not withstand the onslaught, and quickly they started to disintegrate. 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, and over 50% of their bodies were eradicated, and the destruction continued. Under the relentless suppression of the eternal realm, the behemoths couldn't even twitch. This demonstrated Lin Fei's current strength, able to easily suppress supremes and chaotic behemoths alike. As the bodies of the chaotic behemoths continued to dissolve, Lin Fei's eternal realm absorbed a vast amount of their essence. The essence nourished and enriched the entire realm. After an indeterminate amount of time, a deep rumbling resonated through the eternal realm. The essence of the realm itself seemed to be undergoing a transformation, signaling something momentous was unfolding within. It's done. Lin Fei's eyes sparkled with a unique brilliance. His eternal realm was evolving, undergoing a profound transformation. The transformation indicated that his realm's progress had reached and perhaps even surpassed the critical threshold of 10%, especially with the addition of the essence from two chaotic behemoths, significantly enhancing the realm beyond merely 10%. This marked a significant milestone in the potency and capability of his eternal realm. Lin Fei waited patiently until the two chaotic behemoths were entirely obliterated and their essence fully assimilated by his eternal realm. Only then did the transformative process within the realm begin to subside, eventually reaching a state of complete calm. System, Lin Fei commanded, accessing the interface to review his current status. Host, Lin Fei. Martial realm, martial ancestor. World level, true immortal level, progress, 11%. Illusory realm, supreme level. Observing his world level, Lin Fei noted it remained at the true immortal level, but the progress had advanced to 11%, surpassing the critical 10% mark. This increase suggested that his eternal realm had ascended to a new level of power, rendering it formidably strong. Lin Fei felt confident that even a top-tier supreme would struggle to escape if ensnared by his eternal realm. Such was the terrifying prowess of his current realm. Now, it seems a good time to return to the divine realm, Lin Fei mused, his thoughts turning to further ambitions. Perhaps I could also venture into the Dark Demon domain to see if I can vanquish the Dark Demon Lord and eradicate the threat from that realm once and for all. His eyes glittered with a fierce light at the thought. Lin Fei had not forgotten the threat posed by the Dark Demon domain and its ruler. Given any opportunity, he was determined to neutralize these dangers permanently. With this resolution, Lin Fei hesitated no longer. In a swift motion, he left Kunyu City, transforming into a streak of light as he headed back toward the Divine Realm. Chapter 669. Return to Dark Demon Domain. In the Divine Realm, affairs were largely managed by Azure Emperor Supreme and several other Supremes. Most of the day-to-day operations were delegated to various true immortals and martial ancestors. Azure Emperor Supreme's primary concern remained the chaotic events and the potential resurgence of the Dark Demon Domain. Should it rise again, the whole Divine Realm would need to be ready for battle. However, it had been 3 quiet years since any news came from the Dark Demon Domain, which was a relief. According to our agreement, Supreme Lin should be returning soon, right? Azure Emperor Supreme mused quietly to Black Tortoise Supreme, who was present with him. Black Tortoise Supreme smiled. He should be back soon, though it's hard to say how he has fared over these 3 years. The chaos is not as forgiving as one might imagine. Both Black Tortoise Supreme and Azure Emperor Supreme knew all too well the complexities and dangers of the chaos from their own experiences. Venturing into such chaos was fraught with great risk and often little reward. Many Supremes spent their lives battling through dangers without any significant improvement in their strength. For as your Emperor Supreme and his peers, advancing to the level of a top-tier Supreme was nearly impossible, and becoming the ruler of the Divine Realm was out of the question. Thus, their role remained to safeguard the Divine Realm. 3 years without a peep from the Dark Demon Domain feels like the calm before the storm, as your Emperor Supreme expressed his unease. Black Tortoise Supreme chuckled, as your Emperor Supreme, it's the Dark Demon Domain and the Dark Demon Lord that should be worried, not us. We have Supreme Lin. What will he be like after 3 years? What about 30 years from now? Solving the Dark Demon Domain issue is just a matter of time for Supreme Lin. Black Tortoise Supreme had an unwavering confidence in Lin Fei. After all, anyone who meticulously examined Lin Fei's past growth trajectory would be left dumbfounded and even find it unbelievable. Many Supremes were skeptical, but that was the truth. Who could have imagined that Lin Fei had now become the foremost Supreme of the Divine Realm? Indeed, he was among the topmost Supremes. Of course, Lin Fei was merely a martial ancestor, holding the title in the Divine Realm. Yet, he was rightfully the preeminent Supreme of the Divine Realm. If there was a solution to the Dark Demon Domain issue within the Divine Realm, then only Lin Fei held the promise of resolving it. Suddenly, there was a slight alteration in the rules of the Divine Realm. Someone has entered the Divine Realm. As your Emperor Supreme's expression became serious. When he was about to sense further, swoosh, a figure appeared before as your Emperor Supreme. Lin Fei. As your Emperor Supreme and Black Tortoise Supreme abruptly stood up. Unexpectedly, it was Lin Fei who had returned. As your Emperor Supreme, Black Tortoise Supreme, I am back. What has transpired in the Divine Realm during these 3 years? Any movements from the Dark Demon Domain? Upon his return to the Divine Realm, Lin Fei immediately inquired about its affairs, particularly concerning the Dark Demon Domain, to which he paid great attention. The Divine Realm has been quite uneventful, all is serene and tranquil. As for the Dark Demon Domain, there has been no activity. No signs of them stirring anew. Of course, we have never ventured into the Dark Demon Domain, nor do we know the current state of affairs there. The Dark Demon Domain has its Dark Demon Lord, perhaps plodding in the shadows, but we are completely in the dark. As your Emperor Supreme slightly shook his head. He was well versed with the affairs of the Divine Realm, but the situation in the Dark Demon Domain remained obscure to him. Lin Fei pondered thoughtfully, it's good that nothing has happened in the Divine Realm. On this trip to Kunyu City, I stumbled upon something that might just allow us to test the Dark Demon Domain. Let us see if we can eliminate the Dark Demon Lord and ultimately neutralize the threat of the Dark Demon Domain. A glint of sharpness flashed in Lin Fei's eyes. This time, his eternal realm had soared to over 10%. His strength had undergone a revolutionary transformation. The Dark Demon Domain remained an ever-looming threat, and Lin Fei was eager to resolve it. Lin Fei, when will you go to the Dark Demon Domain? Do you need us to accompany you? As your Emperor Supreme asked with a grave expression. Lin Fei's return to the Dark Demon Domain clearly was not just a casual visit. Lin Fei glanced at as your Emperor Supreme and Black Tortoise Supreme, then shook his head slightly. This time, I should go alone. Bringing more Supremes would not make much difference. The Dark Demon Lord reigns invincible within the Dark Demon Domain. Numbers will not impact him. As long as my strength has indeed increased, dealing with the Dark Demon Lord shouldn't pose much of a problem. The only question is whether I can completely annihilate him. Lin Fei was well aware that solving the Dark Demon Domain was not going to be easy. His strength had increased, but to what extent? Whether it was enough to resolve the Dark Demon Domain was indeed a question. Only by venturing there himself could Lin Fei truly determine if he could resolve the issue of the Dark Demon Domain once and for all. Thus, Lin Fei continued to inquire about matters concerning the Divine Realm. He also met with his wife and family. The couple shared tender moments together. After a few days, Lin Fei set out again. The matter of the Dark Demon Domain was urgent and he was not one to delay. Swoosh! Transforming into a streak of light, Lin Fei had already soared into the depths of chaos, heading towards the Dark Demon Domain. Familiar with its location, Lin Fei did not need a guide and could find the Dark Demon Domain on his own. Lin Fei flew for a long time. Time passed indeterminably. The unchanging chaos finally showed a hint of variation. Lin Fei stopped. He saw a chaos realm ahead, and it was one he knew well. The Dark Demon Domain. Finally reaching the Dark Demon Domain, Lin Fei did not rush to enter. Instead, he carefully observed the situation of the Dark Demon Domain. It seemed much the same as before. From the outside, there were no discernible changes. Furthermore, Lin Fei had secretly observed for a long time. No one had entered the Dark Demon Domain, nor had anyone left. After all, it had only been 3 years. It was unlikely that any significant changes had occurred in the Dark Demon Domain. However, for Lin Fei, this was a favorable development. The lack of any changes in the Dark Demon Domain suggested that the Dark Demon Lord likely had not gained much in strength. Yet Lin Fei's power had transformed dramatically. With this advantage, Lin Fei might truly be capable of resolving the issue with the Dark Demon Lord. Swoosh! The next moment, Lin Fei hesitated no longer. With a single step, he crossed over and instantly flew into the Dark Demon Domain. Within the Dark Demon Domain, the Dark Demon Lord sat loftily on his throne. His expression was calm, yet his eyes flickered with a hint of coldness. 3 full years, and you have found nothing. A dangerous aura emanated from the Dark Demon Lord. The Supremes of the Dark Demon Domain below each displayed a look of terror. They feared punishment from the Dark Demon Lord, or even execution. The Lord had grown increasingly irritable over the years, so much so that even a Supreme could be executed by him. It mattered little to him whether they were exalted Supremes. Your Majesty, the Supreme of Doomsday you seek, their movements are erratic and unpredictable, no one knows their whereabouts. We have guarded Kunyu City for years, to no avail. We can only continue to wait. Before he could finish, the Dark Demon Lord's gaze turned icy, his tone calm as he spoke. If you cannot find the Supreme of Doomsday, then what use are you to me? Boon. With a mere thought from the Dark Demon Lord, the power of the Dark Demon Domain descended. Instantly, it crushed one of the Dark Demon Domain Supremes into dust. Even his core essence was destroyed by the Dark Demon Lord. At that moment, all the Supremes fell silent, daring not to utter another word. Chapter 670. A direct confrontation with the Dark Demon Domain. Search the chaos. Search Kunyu City. At all costs, the Supreme of Doomsday must be found. The Dark Demon Lord stated coldly. Yes, Your Majesty. The remaining Supremes of the Dark Demon Domain dared not say more. They responded with immediate deference and promptly departed. The Dark Demon Lord's ruthlessness was not without reason. As long as the Dark Demon Domain existed, Supremes would inevitably arise. Thus, slaughtering some Supremes was hardly a matter of consequence. But, should he perish or should the Dark Demon Domain be annihilated, all would be too late. The Supreme of Doomsday had once slain a top Supreme. He possessed the power to kill a top Supreme, heralded as one of the strongest entities beneath the Master of Chaos. The Dark Demon Lord conceived a plan to deal with Lin Fei, to invite an existence more formidable than Lin Fei to execute him. The one who was more formidable than Lin Fei could only be the Supreme of Doomsday. After all, Lin Fei was comparable to a top Supreme. Only a being like the Supreme of Doomsday could possibly slay Lin Fei. Yet, the Supreme of Doomsday was elusive. The Dark Demon Lord himself had sought after him, but to no avail. Therefore, he dispatched all the Supremes of the Dark Demon Domain to search. To date, they had yet to uncover any clues. If the Supreme of Doomsday could not be found, the Dark Demon Lord would be unable to confront Lin Fei. Should too much time pass, it has been but 3 years. What of 30 years or even 300 years from now? The Dark Demon Lord even believed that Lin Fei might one day become the Master of Chaos. Should that time come, his demise would be certain. Even the Dark Demon Domain might utterly collapse. Not to mention becoming the Master of Chaos. Once he became a terrifying existence like the Supreme of Doomsday, even a realm ruler could be slain. Thus, the Dark Demon Lord felt a profound sense of crisis. He felt as though a critical moment was imminent. He must slay Lin Fei at all costs. A low hum resounded. Just then, a figure appeared instantaneously before the Dark Demon Lord. Upon seeing this figure, the Dark Demon Lord's eyes widened in shock. You? Lin Fei? How could you enter the Dark Demon Domain so silently? Impossible, this simply cannot be. The Dark Demon Lord was astounded. Not merely at seeing Lin Fei once again, but at the fact that Lin Fei had reached the Dark Demon domain undetected by him. Not a trace of his presence had been sensed. This was highly irregular. After all, he was the ruler of the Dark Demon domain. Any minute alteration within the Dark Demon domain was usually clear to him as day. Yet here stood Lin Fei, a supreme being of the highest order, right before him, and he had only just noticed. The implications were crystal clear to the Dark Demon Lord. Dark Demon Lord, we meet again. There is nothing impossible, for I am constantly advancing and improving at every moment. And you have ceased to advance. It appears you have not progressed even slightly in 3 years. Lin Fei shook his head. Seeing the state of the Dark Demon Lord, he knew that he remained just as he was 3 years ago. No advancement whatsoever. Moreover, Lin Fei had also heard some rumors. The Dark Demon Lord was seeking the Doomsday Supreme to counter him. Doomsday Supreme was a name unfamiliar to Lin Fei. But judging by the demeanor of the Dark Demon Lord, he seemed certain that the Doomsday Supreme could challenge him. This suggested that the Doomsday Supreme indeed possessed the power to confront a supreme being of the highest caliber. Such was the strategy of the Dark Demon Lord. To seek out another, even more formidable supreme, to contend against Lin Fei. As long as Lin Fei remained unresolved, so too would his peace be disturbed. The Dark Demon Lord would exhaust every method to oppose Lin Fei. What method did you use to evade my detection? The Dark Demon Lord asked, his voice tinged with a trace of fear. He had never encountered such a situation before. Lin Fei's strength was indeed formidable. It was comparable even to the highest supreme. Yet even the most powerful supreme did not have the means to appear so silently before him. But now, Lin Fei had done just that. What manner of technique could this be? A slight smile touched the corners of Lin Fei's mouth. Indeed, his method was quite simple. Following the transformation of his eternal realm, it had become integrated with the void, complementing and even deceiving the Dark Demon domain. Thus, the Dark Demon domain could not sense Lin Fei's eternal realm presence at all. By mimicking the life essence of the Dark Demon domain with the void, Lin Fei remained undetected. After all, the Dark Demon domain did not have an absolute ruler, only a Dark Demon Lord who could not entirely control every aspect of his realm. As long as the Dark Demon domain did not raise an alarm, the Dark Demon Lord remained oblivious. It was only when Lin Fei appeared right before him that the Dark Demon Lord felt astonishment. Having said so much, Lin Fei continued, Dark Demon Lord, I have come to the Dark Demon domain again to test something to see if you truly are a ruler. A fierce glint flashed through Lin Fei's eyes. Boon. In the next moment, Lin Fei's light of eternity swept up the Dark Demon Lord, pulling him into the eternal realm. Bang! The Dark Demon Lord didn't even utter a word before being crushed to dust by Lin Fei's eternal realm. Dispatching the Dark Demon Lord posed no challenge for the current Lin Fei, not the slightest difficulty. His true concern was whether he could permanently vanquish the Dark Demon Lord. Within Lin Fei's eternal realm, the Lord was reduced to dust. Yet, Lin Fei did not feel particularly elated. He looked up into the void. He could sense that the Dark Demon Lord had not perished. The Lord was still there. Indeed, from the void, another form of the Dark Demon Lord swiftly coalesced. Lin Fei's eyes narrowed slightly. This new form had appeared out of nowhere and was indeed the body of the Dark Demon Lord. Despite being turned to dust in Lin Fei's eternal realm, it had been of no real consequence. Lin Fei, I am the ruler, and you cannot kill me in the Dark Demon domain, the Lord declared, his face grim and his tone icy. Though he could not kill Lin Fei, the Dark Demon Lord felt no joy. Because he could do nothing against Lin Fei. 3 years ago, when Lin Fei first arrived in the Dark Demon domain, the Lord at least had the power to retaliate. But now, the Dark Demon Lord had no power to fight back. He had already tried to mobilize the power of the Dark Demon domain, but to no avail. Beside Lin Fei, there seemed to be an invisible force field. No matter how the Dark Demon Lord summoned the power of the Dark Demon domain, he could not affect Lin Fei. And thus, Lin Fei obliterated his body time and again. How could the Dark Demon Lord possibly feel joy? Is that so? Unable to kill you. Then let me witness just how formidable the Dark Demon domain truly is. Lin Fei took a deep breath. He no longer targeted the Dark Demon Lord directly. It was clear to him that the Dark Demon Lord was indestructible. At least within the confines of the Dark Demon domain. Only by resolving the entire Dark Demon domain could the Lord truly perish. In the next moment, Lin Fei transformed into his Eternal Realm. The Eternal Realm radiated an endless light, sweeping majestically in all directions. Its expanse continued to grow. 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. Lin Fei's Eternal Realm was vast, enormously so. When it expanded to its fullest, it covered nearly half of the Dark Demon domain. Yes, half the realm. Lin Fei's Eternal Realm could envelop half of the Chaos Realm. This sufficiently demonstrated the immense scale of Lin Fei's Eternal Realm. Not to be underestimated. Yet, the Eternal Realm could not completely encompass the Dark Demon domain. It could only cover half. However, this did not hinder Lin Fei's use of the Eternal Realm's power. He intended to confront the Dark Demon domain head-on with the force of the Eternal Realm. Be annihilated. Lin Fei uttered softly. Instantly, the areas of the Dark Demon domain that were enveloped began to collapse.